We are glad to welcome you at our Unicorn.Events shots. Today we are speaking with Dalal uh, AlGhawas, the program director at Big Idea Ventures. Dear Dal, thank you for dedicating your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we are making short interviews with VC funds all over the world.
What industry does your VC fund invest in?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me again. So for Big Idea Ventures, we invest in, let's say, food technology. We actually have three funds at the moment. Our first fund is, let's say, focused on alternative protein. So that's everything from the plant-based as well as the more biotech, fermentation, and cellular agriculture. Our second fund, which is the Generation Food Fund, this is focused more on processing methodologies in the food industry. So anything that can help reduce plastic waste, optimize energy efficiency, water efficiency, that's something that we look into. And then the last fund, the Generation Food Rural Partners Fund, is helping to support the commercialization of innovative food technology research from academic institutions or research institutions. So it's more of a venture building exercise. So in general, we like to invest in food, I would say, rather than agri-tech, but really things that are contributing to, let's say, producing food products. And right now we've structured our funds in a way that we can absorb different stages. So, our new protein fund is primarily focused on, let's say, early stage companies. So everything from pre-seed up to the Series A. For Generation Food Fund, we look at more mature companies. So that would be anything post Series A and above. And then for, let's say the last fund, the Generation Food Rural Partners Fund, that will be catered towards, very early, venture building. So it's really about, helping these academics or researchers, commercialize their products or projects and also form a team. So it's really helping them comprise and compose the right team, and as well giving them that, initial capital to really to really get things going on. So yeah.
And what about geography? Are you geography agnostic or only Asia region?
Absolutely. So yeah, we're definitely geography agnostic. We do have, like, let's say 3 offices in different locations. So our first office is in New York. So I would say there we usually attract many North American companies or companies that have an interest in the North American market. Our second office was established in Singapore. So that would be, let's say, catered towards Asia Pacific. So everything from, let's say, China all the way to Australia. And this would typically be, companies that have an interest in some of the major markets in Asia, including China, Malaysia, Indonesia, as well as, Australia. And then our third office, which just launched this year, is in Paris, in France. So we are looking to kind of, I would say, attract more European or Central European companies, as well as African companies, since they are in very similar time zones. So, we hope to expand in future, let's say, into more, let's say, strategic locations in the future, hopefully in India and China, as well as, let's say, the GCC. But, I think this is just going to take some time. And for now, we really, invite all companies from across the world, even if they're not interested in our, let's say, office location, but we want to support them either way.
Wow. And what is your average check size?
Yeah, for us, so depending on the stage, we invest anywhere from 200,000 US, that would be like the earliest, stage, all the way up to 3 million. So yeah, depending on, let's say, the stage of the company, the category, we can also do, I would say, follow-on funding. So typically when we work with a portfolio company for the first time, we tend to give them smaller check sizes and then evaluate them through an extensive due diligence process, which might be through our accelerator programs or just monitoring their fundraising rounds. And typically when we do our follow-on investment, we won't come on as the lead investor, but we can contribute up to 3 million going forward.
Do you have any unicorns in your portfolio?
Not yet, but I can, let's say, gladly say that we already have like an acquisition from our portfolio. So like one of our companies was the first cell-based company to be acquired in the world. That was Piece of Meat from Belgium, which specializes in, let's say, cultivated fats. and they were acquired by Meat Tech, which is also like a cell-based company in Israel. And actually, Meat Tech was one of the first cell-based companies to actually be listed on the stock exchange, so to IPO. So, we're very proud of that investment. And I think, what we're definitely seeing from our investment portfolio is, no matter how early they are, it's a very attractive industry, especially for the alternative protein sector. And we can, anticipate that there will be more of these acquisitions going forward, as well as follow-on funding. But to be honest, a lot of the companies we fund are quite early. So I think we still need to give them some time to see if they have unicorn potential.
Thank you. And Dalal, tell us, please, what is your way of picking startups that you invest in from all the others that approach you?
So like, how do we choose them, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for us, we don't have like, I would say like set criteria. We try to, let's say, optimize our selection process based on, each company and the potential that we see for that company. So typically for us, number one is we look at the team and we evaluate the team's potential, whether we can, let's say, verify and validate their credentials. It could be past experiences that they've had, or just, let's say their personality, which is maybe, very charismatic, at the same time, very dedicated and driven, towards this project. The next thing, of course, is we will evaluate the defensibility of the product itself. So like, is there a way for them to, innovate or be protected, so the other, companies or even corporates might not, let's say, copy them and kind of beat them out of the market. And last but not least, we also kind of assess the, we would call it like the regulatory landscape. So because a lot of the companies that we work with, or let's say, are innovative technologies for food. So a lot of them might not have the regulatory approval yet, but we try to rely on our own research as well as market reports to assess the potential. So even for, let's say, a category like cellular agriculture, which is quite nascent, and you only have, one country in the world that has approved its commercial sale, which is Singapore. And they only gave this approval to one company. So, in that sense, we try to evaluate, what is the potential for some of these companies to actually, get into the market, and what are some of the regulatory hurdles that they need to overcome. So, based on the potential and the technology that they're working on, we can then evaluate in terms of like how long they need to get into the market, how long they need for the regulatory process to be approved. And then we base our judgment accordingly. If it's something that's very, let's say, controversial and needs maybe a lot of time to get into market, that won't be, let's say, an issue for us. Like, we still will support those companies if we believe that it is truly sustainable and can really make a difference to the food supply chain.
But if we are talking about meeting with startups, for you as for investor, what's the main criteria to look at when the startup is pitching?
Oh yeah, okay. there's so many. I would say definitely, we look for structure. So like, for us, we really want to assess, what the, let's say, the problem that they're solving, as well as the solution that they're proposing. It's very important that, let's say, founders are really addressing something that the market needs, that there is a consumer interest. We will always, assess a company based on how well they understand the competitive landscape. So something we'll always tell companies is that even though you think you're the only one working on a specific project, you still need to assess what's happening over the world. So if they don't have a good grasp of like what's going on in their sector, that's usually a red flag for us, because they might be, very isolated and not thinking, quite big, or not thinking about the competition. Last but not least, I would say that they really need to understand, let's say, we call it like the fundraising, strategy, as well as like how to manage their runway and sort of cash flow. So, we try to assess, founders based on, at the end of the day, they're running a business. So do they really understand what are the incremental steps they need to take in order to successfully grow that business? And, again, and this is not in order in terms of priority, I'm kind of jumping back and forth, but I would say definitely, for us, when we meet founders, we also want to assess their technology. And with assessing technology, it's very important that they have at least one, let's say, scientific officer on board, we would be quite hesitant if we felt that this was like a part-time role, or to what they didn't have like a secure, let's say, scientific officer on board that was really helping them to, verify as well as, secure intellectual property for that specific technology. So I would say that it's definitely a full package that we're looking for, but as long as the company is quite, let's say, organized and systematic with their approach and can communicate it effectively to investors, that's really what we're looking for.
Okay, thank you so much. So, Dalal, you know that usually founders present companies with a pitch deck, and our unicorn battles also with pitch deck. So, what is the most important in the pitch deck from your point of view?
Yeah, many things.
Main slide. Right.
The main, I would always tell founders, especially like, because I've noticed something, a lot of founders, they tend to skip the team slide. And I always tell them, for me as an investor, especially early stage investor, I care the most about the team because I'm investing in the team. A lot of the times, like, they don't have the right market validation, their technology is not at the right level, it still needs to go through several iterations. But the team is definitely who we're investing in, we're going to be working with and communicating with on a regular basis. So I would always tell companies, focus on the team, make sure that you can show very clearly during that pitch, who you are, what is your caliber, what have you done before, why are you the best team for this project? And last but not least, I think which is really important for all kinds of companies, is make sure that your pitch deck aesthetics look nice. I know sometimes it might not always be our strong suit to have very good, let's say, graphic design or visual skills, but we always say just outsource it if you're not good at it. But I think this will really give a very strong impression if you have a very polished pitch deck. And yeah, so I would definitely say team and just the visual aesthetics are very important.
So speaker must pitch his team, not the product, to your mind, am I right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just as important. It's really important. And I think a lot of the times is we can grasp very quickly in the pitch like what their technology is about, but we're always left wondering like, okay, why should I invest in you? So I think the team, even if you bring it to the end, but make sure that you spend some time and educate the investor and let them know who you are. I think that's what I wanted to kind of leave as a message.
Sure. I think we have last question here. While the speaker.
Yeah. So, Dalal, please give a piece of advice to the startups out there. Something what will help them to succeed.
Yeah. Okay, that's a hard one. I mean, there's no no clear-cut answer. I think definitely, for companies or startups, there's so much that you can do on your own, but you really need to find strategic partners. And these could be strategic investors as well. So, at Big Idea Ventures, we do consider ourselves as strategic partners and investors. And what I mean by that is, we are specialized in our field. We understand, all aspects of food technology. That's all we do. So that way we can really be focused. Also, our team, is kind of selected on that basis that we all have an F&B background in very, let's say, different fields, be it from product development, marketing, distribution, etc. So I think, for startups, you're doing amazing, especially the fact that you are so brave and you managed to take that step to become an entrepreneur and really put everything on the line for your company. But at some stage, you really need to rely on experts to support you, as well as be open-minded to hear their feedback to really help you get to the next level. So I will just say that in order for you to succeed, you need to also understand your limitations, find the right kind of strategic partners to support you, and be open-minded to their suggestions. I think a lot of the times, when we evaluate companies, we also evaluate their coachability. If they don't want to listen to our feedback, then it's going to be a very difficult, let's say, relationship going forward, not only for us as strategic investors, but also for their future when they start to expand the company. So I think those would probably be my top tips, for success. And yeah, and just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, it takes a lot of guts. So we're always very, very honored and really impressed with the startup founders and their tenacity, and their energy to kind of pursue their dreams and really make an impact on the world.
Thank you, Dalal. Thanks for sharing your minds with us. It was interesting. I hope to see you at our new Unicorn events online in the summer season. Please stay in touch.